Welcome, loves, to another episode of my podcast, That's Fine With Me. Today we're going to be talking about Halloween, the history of Halloween. Why are we so attracted to horror films or horror itself and fear to be scared? Why do we like to be scared, basically? And we're going to be talking about the difference between American Halloween, like as it is right now, or how it started, and then about Celts and about Russian Halloween. Not even Russian Halloween, but how it started in Russia back then when it wasn't even Russia. Yeah, we're going to get started with why are we attracted to a fear, let's say, sensation and the feeling of fear and to be scared. Why do we really like it? So the first reason, it's really basic. We love to experience stimulation. When we watch different films and we're listening to some podcasts right now, we really like the stimulation and to be tense where we're listening or watching some horror films, especially in TikTok. It's really popular right now when we're listening to some like murder stories or something that is actually keeping us in real tension. Well, the second reason is a novel experience. It's quite basic. When we watch some series about, like, let's say The Vampire Diaries or maybe The Twilight, we're idealizing some vampires, though they're like sucking creatures, sucking your blood creatures. They're literally killing. But a lot of girls, especially teenage, that are super affected by this whole like beauty hot actors that are playing the role of a vampire. We're like, oh my god, I wanted to be a vampire one day, or I want to date a vampire, because we were watching a lot of films that were idealizing those protagonists. And mainly, of course, the main idea behind this whole horror story about vampires is that they can live forever and they're always young, so they keep their youth, and that would keeps this intriguing and what keeps people in a position that they want to attain this, let's say, status. It's not even a status, but it's just like they want to be vampires because we still have no cure to keep our youth as long as possible. And vampires, they actually have this, they possess this quality, let's say. And not only vampires, mainly can be aliens or zombie lands or something like this. So we try to escape from reality and see what is there outside of our world. And I guess we're wondering, is it true or not? I don't know. Well, the third reason is quite simple. We really want to satisfy the curiosity we have about life. Is there anything when we die? Are we the ghost? Are we gonna like live forever? And do we keep the soul, or just we die and this is the end of it all? I don't know. So like, what is forming after the death? Do we actually feel any pleasure out of watching these horror films and maybe videos or attending haunted houses? Frankly speaking, personally, I wouldn't go to a haunted house because I'm going to be like freaking out about this whole situation that is happening right there. But a lot of people, they feel a sense of safety. When they're in their own house, they know that no one can touch them, and they feel the tense, let's say, feeling. And they, even if they're going to a haunted house, they know that people are not even people, but these creatures, they're not going to hurt them. And that gives them a little bit of comfort that like, wow, I need to get this release. And of course, a lot of this situations that we try to ensure ourselves that mainly when we watch horror films, those are actors and they're not harmed in the situation, and we feel like more or less safe, that it's just play factors, and we still feel pleasure of this tense scenes. And of course, we love the feeling of overcoming the danger. A lot of people, they need an adrenaline, and whenever they go to a haunted house, they need this feeling like, oh my god, like a couple of minutes and I would feel so much better that I've overcome my fear, and then I can probably just like feel super energized till the rest of the day. There was some certain study held a couple of years ago where it showed a lot of people with less empathy, and people are not empathetic at all. They love horror films and they love going and watching these type of films. And as well as people with being super empathetic, they would probably avoid this type of films. And it's actually quite obvious, because empathy is something when you see that someone is hurt or in struggle or someone is literally torturing him, you can't watch it. You are going to start crying because you would try to feel bad for this person. And people with less empathy, well, they definitely feel absolutely nothing, and they need a sense of adrenaline in their blood. And it's really interesting that countries with a higher GDP per capita, it's mainly like the economy is a little bit more stable in their countries. They want to watch this type of films regularly, or even a little bit more than people with living in a country economically struggling. And I guess it is related to the fact that the countries with a higher GDP level, they can afford a lot of in their life, and they don't really care. Maybe they do care, but some people, they might not even care what they're going to eat today, because they have access to some shops, groceries, and food itself, the access amount of things. And for example, India, where the poverty is dramatic, I'd say. People, they don't really have access to some phones or TV to even watch these horror films, and they have a lot of in their on their plate, and they have a lot of things to stress about than to watch some horror film because they have this horrors in their personal life every single day. That is the main reason. But do we actually get any benefits from watching horror films? Well, we do. When we watch among family, friends, or I don't know, your lover, there is a hormone that is released. It's called oxytocin hormone. This oxytocin hormone helps us to feel closeness, and it actually bonds us. And of course, when we're done with watching this film, the endorphin is released and we feel so much better. This is a hormone of happiness and pure happiness. Mainly, we get this hormone when we eat chocolate and have sex. So I guess it's a little bit interesting when we get the same hormone when we're done with watching some horror films or being in a haunted house, or maybe, I don't know, some other situations when we felt scared. And let's talk a little bit about history of the celebration, Halloween celebration. Before I talked about all these fears and horror, let's say haunted houses, it's really important to know that it came from Celts. So about 2,000 years ago, they lived around Ireland or maybe northern France, and they had let's say the celebration that was called Samhain, I guess. It was called Samhain. And it was really similar to Halloween that we see right now, but it's a little bit different at the same time because they believed the end of the year was on the 31st of October and the new year begins from the 1st of November. And of course, it's actually really logical because that was the end of harvest, it was the end of crops, and they believed there was some sort of death of humanity in some ways because it was cold and dark and summer was definitely over, and it was the end of food that they could gather. And if the crops were poor or the harvest was really poor this year, then they're gonna struggle through winter. And of course, that's why they wanted to let's say have a celebration where they could see some future, and they had their own priests, the Celtic priests, or let's call them druids. You know, this really popular French movie with druids and Celts, I don't remember, Asterix and Obelix, if I'm mistaken. And those druids, they would create bonfires on 31st of October, and they would sacrifice animals, their crops, and food, and they would try to enlighten their heart with some information and see for the future and ask for better harvest, better crops in the future, like future year. And this whole situation was pretty much obvious. They were wearing a lot of animal scalps. They were wearing a lot of animal skin. So it was remotely similar to something that we have now as Halloween. Of course, now wearing actual animals. They were not actually scared of the devils or ghosts. They were mainly asking for a better harvest. This celebration was popular up until the 8th century, or maybe the beginning of 9th century. And the Pope Gregory III, he started a new tradition, and he called this tradition, not even tradition, but this new, let's say, celebration, All Souls Days. And mainly, it was the day of celebrating, mainly not even celebrating, but honor dead, and was similar to actually Samhain celebration, but it was a little bit different because it was just the beginning of church as itself and the new traditions, but they didn't really want to ruin the previous one. That's why they tried to create a new holiday, but try to be really similar to something that they actually had on 31st of October. So the new holiday of that was called All Hallows. It was really similar to something that they had, All Hallows, or as they called us, All Hallowmas, that was considered as like a day of saints or like of All Souls, something like this. And the day before November 1st, they were celebrating All Hallows Eve. So now we have like Halloween, but before that it was All Hallows Eve because they were celebrating Hallow Souls. Let's say let's put it this way, I guess. Mainly, this tradition started in the 8th or maybe 9th century and carried on through centuries. Later, New England started, let's say, avoiding the celebration, and they were limiting the celebration mainly because there was a new belief. They were like rigid Protestants that were believing this wasn't a good celebration for church to celebrate demons, ghosts, and of course the afterlife, like death, because they were mainly showing that there's a God and you should believe in God only, and there's nothing else, no mystery but God and Holy Spirits. That is the main reason why they were limiting the celebration. But America back then, there were a lot of immigrants to a new continent. They were developing this new continent. They were developing this new idea of freedom. And of course, there were a lot of people from Europe itself, not only Europe, but from all over the world, but mainly it was Europe and especially England. This was a new colony of England, let's say America. America was trying and exploring some new options to celebrate Halloween as a party, gathering with neighbors and telling some spooky stories among friends and family members. It wasn't as similar as cults or wearing animal masks or anything like this, but it mainly just like had some party and gathering, and they were celebrating the harvest because still 31st of October was still like that was the end of harvest, pumpkins, and that is the main reason why it led to a Thanksgiving Day, because a lot of food was available. And I guess in the middle of 19th century, the celebration has become common and people are still celebrating Halloween. But I want to talk a little bit, like we specified Celtic tradition, how it started. But in Russia, we actually had something similar, but it was called a little bit differently. This was called Vespers Night. And he was some spirit, I guess, or maybe God. And of course, people believed in multiple gods. They believed in nature, that we have to honor women mainly. I don't know about other countries, but I do know that before traditional church and before Russians had become Christians, sort of Christians, we had a little bit different beliefs. We had multiple gods, and of course, women were sort of gods because they were providing life. The church tried to sort of demonize women and let's say create them that they were sinister. They were sinister. But before church and before the problem with women, actually women were cherished among others, among everyone, let's say. And of course, there was, I believe, the similarities that on the 31st of October, there was a celebration. It was Vespers Night. And what is so interesting about this night, that people were not allowed to leave their house. Mainly, they had to stay in their house, but if they really needed to go anywhere else, they would actually dress up and go out in some masks, or they would dress up as ghosts or some devil spirits, like anything like this, so they wouldn't be recognized among evil spirits. Similar to Halloween, actually. So they shouldn't have been inviting anyone in their house, because those could have been some spirits and evil, I don't know, evil spirits, demons, I don't know, whoever they could be. If there were unknown people and then turn up at their doorsteps, they would still tell them, sorry, just go, you're probably an evil spirit. They believed there was some sort of fight between two gods, and that's why they needed to fall asleep as quick as possible and live through this night in their sleep. But if it was really hard for them to sleep through this night, they shouldn't have looked at the window because they believed some evil spirits could follow them and could see through their windows. That is the main reason why they lighten some fire and they try to put some candles on the window, so they would probably see that someone is in the house and just go away. Evil spirits, go away, and please do not come in the house. And of course, the better option was, it was really similar to trick or treat, because a lot of Slovenians, they were leaving some food on their doorsteps because they believed if some spirits needed some food, they would, let's say, give it to them, and those spirits would leave the home away. And that is pretty much it. I guess it's really interesting how all these traditions, they are not related to church in any ways, and mainly church is not actually really happy about the celebration, especially in Russia. Halloween was Halloween was a celebration that people completely forgot about it, and they didn't want to dive in the Halloween celebration for years. And now when we have TikTok and social media, and of course people see how Americans or someone from Europe, I'm not even sure about Asia, I don't really think Asia is celebrating Halloween, but the United States, basically they're holding this celebration every single year. In a lot of other countries, they want to participate in this tradition and they want to celebrate Halloween as well. Though all of this, let's say, holidays, mainly holidays, they were originally coming from Europe. And right now, Russia, that had something similar to Halloween, is not super into this tradition where we're celebrating Halloween itself. And especially generation, let's call them like builders or even boomers, they're against this tradition because they're super religious, and our religion is forbidden to celebrate demons and certain spirits. But they completely forgot about the tradition where you have to avoid spirits like demons and probably just have fun and maybe just dress up. And I don't really think it's really important nowadays to believe in such things as demons, and going against church, because it's for fun purposes only. But I don't know, guys, what do you think? I believe we're all attracted to fear itself, and we're all attracted to some scary movies from time to time. I really love something not super scary, but with mystical twist. I really like something about maybe like not really horror films, but maybe like Bride's Corpse, or maybe some other cartoons or films that were not super scary, but they were mystical, and that's why I really like them, because you believe that maybe something else is an afterlife. I don't know, guys. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Are you celebrating? What are you from? Like, is it common in your country, or you're not celebrating this holiday? And maybe even if you're from United States, you still might not celebrate this holiday because like you feel it's stupid, or you're a huge fan of Halloween itself. But I really think it's cool for some makeup inspirations, some makeup experiments, and to dress up, have a little bit fun, and just like loosen up. So let me know in the comments. I love you all so much, and I'm going to see you in my next podcast. That's Fine With Me. Bye bye.